Serhiy Braychuk, spokesperson for the Ukrainian Volunteer Army, is already with us live. Hello, Serhiy.
A very warm welcome to all of you.
Glory to Ukraine, glory to the forces. Hello, colleagues.
Glory to the heroes. Serhiy, when the news came out that Ukraine was asked for help, consultation and support regarding the downing of a Shaheed, I wasn't even really surprised. Of course, it's clear that the war is happening in Ukraine, but just how invaluable is this experience in your opinion, and how is it already changing the overall security architecture in the world? Ukraine is reaching a new level both politically and militarily, and what will this mean for the country, for our defense?
This news was actually expected, and to be honest, I wasn't surprised. It was only a matter of time. I think that under the right circumstances for our foreign colleagues, partners, and allies, this should have happened even a little earlier. But nevertheless, it is what it is. Ukraine, in reality, we are talking about the political military component where I would now put politics in first place. It's no coincidence that Ukraine is truly becoming more of a subject in this new system of global security, which is still only being formed, which unfortunately, yes, is being born through pain, through blood. But it is obvious that the old security system that existed could not have changed in any other way, unfortunately, except through these conflicts, through wars, because the axis of evil, no one has abolished it, and it continued to gain strength. And it is clear that today it is trying to demonstrate not only that it is an evil part of humanity, but also that it is truly seeking to take a dominant position in geopolitics. That's enough about geopolitics and the military sphere. Indeed, today the Russian-Ukrainian war has shown that just as the art of war on the battlefield has changed, so too has war itself. Yes, there is infantry, yes, there is aviation, yes, there are still tanks, artillery, and multiple launch rocket systems. Accordingly, that's what we're used to. However, here is this new component, a new chapter: drones in the air, drones at sea, robotic systems on land. In other words, all the elements today have changed the nature of war. Today, they make it possible, as was rightly said, to protect our soldiers. And accordingly, most importantly, or at least just as importantly, to repel enemy attacks. Moreover, to do this effectively, even impressively in some cases. And of course, to do this without such a financial burden. What we are seeing today is happening in particular in the Middle East. Therefore, it is obvious that our partners and allies, the United States of America, as well as our European colleagues, have been watching Ukraine for a long time. I think that relevant technical or military technical negotiations in this direction have also been taking place. The Americans have been very active here, but the situation around Iran has shown that it is clearly necessary to speed things up. Therefore, for us, for example, let's say closer contacts with the countries of the Persian Gulf, with the countries of the Middle East, are indeed important. We can see how actively the president is working today as the Supreme Commander-in-Chief, communicating with the leaders of these states, which are very wealthy financially. But as it turns out, even the most modern weaponry does not guarantee that you can protect yourself from what seems like an ordinary, yet rather unpleasant thing, such as those same Shaheeds, or Gerans, the wreckage of which has already been found accordingly in a number of Middle Eastern countries. So now the question is, who is supplying whom with this weaponry today? Is it Russia supplying Iran, or is Iran making these Gerans itself for the Russian Federation? But that's another question, though no less important. Today, Ukraine can truly offer, first of all, its own experience. Secondly, I think that both our industry and the range of drones and the companies that produce them are so extensive that really probably any country in the world could only envy it. War taught us. We were forced to go through this process very quickly, as fast as possible, because these are the lives of our people, the lives of our loved ones and relatives. And accordingly, today we see that Ukraine is applying its knowledge, experience, and weaponry very effectively. Therefore, it is obvious that today we may not know in detail, and that's as it should be, about the possible formats of our specialists' involvement. And I'm not talking about the military. So that my words are interpreted correctly, we are talking about our specialists who will help the countries of the Persian Gulf to resist the aggression of the Iranian regime, which today has made, or continues to make, terror its foundation, not only against neighboring states, but also threatening European countries as well. Therefore, today Ukraine must fully embrace and utilize its right, its unique opportunity to truly reinforce its sovereign agency and strategic influence in this world, and accordingly clearly and decisively demonstrate to everyone that we stand firmly alongside the modern and civilized world of nations. And accordingly, those financial investments, these are investments among others that Europe, the United States, and other countries are making in Ukraine's defense forces, are investments in security, in a safer world.
Look, Serhiy, here's the latest news. One of them, yes, Reuters reports that this week, a Ukrainian delegation has already been in Doha and Abu Dhabi to discuss possible options for cooperation. Yes, as I understand it, it's also worth noting that, it's not about the military, right? It's about the fact that there are specialists of various types, let's say, with different qualifications and expertise who can help in addressing this issue. And Reuters also reports that the United States and Qatar are now discussing with Ukraine the possibility of purchasing these interceptor drones to combat Shaheeds. Well, as I understand it, negotiations are currently underway at the intergovernmental level. They include the purchase of systems for early audio detection of Shaheeds, yes, and electronic warfare systems in order to, let's say, counter these corresponding signals. And tell me, if we talk about the most effective approaches currently used to counter drones by the Russian Federation's army, yes, what has proven itself to be the best, the very best, Sergei?
Today I probably won't name any specific interceptor drones, well, as an example.
We're probably talking about a comprehensive approach as well, right?
Of course. Well, yes, we can mention those that are more well known in the media. There are new developments which are now also, well, probably not even at the research stage anymore, but at the stage of application. That is, we are looking at the effectiveness of using such weaponry. I'll tell you more. Everything is scaling up so quickly that our unit also now has its own air defense group. Some are still learning, while others are already gaining practical experience. So you understand just how rapidly all of this is happening. Therefore, when we talk about the use of such weaponry, these are indeed interceptor drones, which perform differently under various conditions. Some are more effective, let's say, for defending our southern borders, like Odessa or, for example, Mykolaiv, while others prove to be more effective in the Kherson direction. Accordingly, in the north or south Slobozansky directions, Lyman, or the Pokrovsk-Mirnohrad agglomeration. In other words, any section of the front. Yes, there is a foundation. There are basic models that are being used today, including in the temporarily occupied territories. Every day we receive such pleasant news for us from the temporarily occupied territories and even from the territory of the Russian Federation. Therefore, regarding our defense, yes, drone interceptors indeed. This is an electronic warfare system because the Russians are not standing still either. It's important to understand that they didn't just create some basic model like these Geran drones and simply use them as is. As you know well from our conversations, they change tactics, they change the technical and tactical characteristics of certain Shahed models, right? The basic model is the Shahed 136 or Shahed 131, then the Geran appears. Well, Geran is actually a Shahed, right? But they try to introduce something new into them. Remember the story with Starlink, for example, right? And let's recall the tactic when the enemy, sending their Shaheds into residential neighborhoods, tries to maneuver between apartment buildings in order to eventually find a target, specifically a large multi-story residential building, and strike it. That is different elevations. As I already mentioned, this is Odessa, the sea. These are low flights over the water because the water makes it impossible to immediately detect these Shaheds. So there are many technical nuances, but we have to respond to all of them. Our specialists are responding today, so the Middle East will have its own specifics as well. But again, this is also a plus for us. That means our drones will be able to operate, I don't know, in all parts of the world with one goal: to protect civilians, to close the skies, and to prevent terrorists from carrying out strikes. After all, that's what this is about. That's why I'm quite confident that this experience accumulated by Ukraine, well, today, Ukraine is truly number one when it comes to drones, including naval drones. The effectiveness of these strikes? Let's at least recall the almost forgotten Black Sea Fleet of the Russian Federation. Where are they today? Yes, they have Kaliber missiles, missile carriers, but who drove them into Novorossiysk? Where do they operate from? Often, it's our naval drones that show them. So perhaps this sounds like a moment of glory, yes, for Ukrainian technologies and our defense forces, but why hide it, right? Today, the Ukrainian army and defense forces are unique in that they managed to contain and crush the world's second largest army. And the world's number one army is calling you for help. So it's even hard for me to say what place that puts us in then.
We're talking with you about the political aspect of this military aid to Ukraine. NATO allies will continue to support Ukraine despite the situation in Iran. This was stated by the Secretary General of the Alliance, Mark Rutte. He noted that there is no question of having to choose whom to help, especially since Ukraine is providing its partners in the Middle East with its technology for intercepting Iranian drones. Let's listen.
Many leaders in Europe, the US, and Canada say that it should be both, to make sure that, as allies, we sufficiently support American actions in the Middle East, while at the same time ensuring that Ukraine has everything it needs to remain strong in its struggle. Right now, Ukrainians are providing their allies with impressive expertise in the field of drones and counter-drone technologies. And this clearly demonstrates how, in exceptional cases and at much lower costs, Middle Eastern countries can destroy Iranian drones.
And speaking of defense of the Ukrainian sky, how much will our assistance, our participation, and our experience, when we start sharing it, impact the situation in Ukraine itself?
And I've already mentioned in part that our assistance to the countries of the Persian Gulf and the Middle East today is an investment in our own security, a direct investment. And we understand perfectly well that by providing military and political support to these countries, we are not just protecting them, we are protecting ourselves. Because I am more than certain that in our agreements, God willing, with allies, and I'm more than sure of this, there are provisions where certain assistance, I don't know the details and cannot know them, but certain assistance will now come to us not only from NATO countries, not only from European states, but also from those countries to whom we are not just providing help today. Today, Ukraine has risen to defend these people, peaceful civilians who are being bombed by Iranian military forces representing the Iranian regime. Therefore, it is obvious that this could also mean investments, for example, in the development of our drones, both strike and defensive drones, as well as drone interceptors. These are investments in our air defense system because for us, ballistic missiles are a major threat today. Well, maybe they will share missiles with us. It's quite possible. I don't know. Let no one know about this. Let the Russians find out about it, especially those in Ukraine and in the east. Let the Iranian terrorists find out, those who are also killing our Ukrainian citizens and fighting alongside Russia against us.
Serhiy, thank you for the conversation. Thank you for joining us. Let me remind you that we were joined by Serhiy Brachek, spokesperson for the Ukrainian Volunteer Army.
Everything important you need to know today is already in the Freedom app. Live broadcasts, special projects, reports, and analysis. Just download the app from the App Store or Play Market and get up-to-date information wherever you are. Staying informed about important events is easy with Freedom.